Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be discussing my update on my rating system. So I've been using this rating system for a little over a year now, and I've started to realize that it doesn't actually accurately portray my feelings about books. I kind of realized that my rating system kind of skewed to the higher ratings and that I was rarely giving out 1 or 2 star ratings, even if a book kind of deserved it. So I went through and kind of revamped my rating system, and I'm going to be explaining it to you today. So I use a 10-star rating system instead of a 5-star rating system. I still do translate my ratings into ratings out of 5 for Goodreads, and I mention what they are out of 5, but I just think about my ratings in terms of out of 10 stars, and it's just the easiest way for me to do my ratings. For me, that's just how I think about ratings and how my brain functions in terms of ratings. However, when kind of revamping this rating system, I realized that I do rely more on the 5-star rating system than I previously thought. In fact, my personal feelings about the book actually tend to dictate what star rating out of 5 they get, while my critical eye tends to determine where within that star rating I end up placing it. So I'm obviously going to be going through and talking about my ratings out of 10 and what each one means, but I'm also going to be talking about ratings out of 5 because those are the ones that you see on Goodreads, and I want to briefly explain what each one out of 5 means. So I'm going to start out with ratings out of 5, and then I'm going to break it down into my 10-star ratings. And since I do have a blog post on this, which will be linked in the description, I'm not going to go into full detail. I'm going to be talking broadly because there are a lot of ratings here to get to. So if I give a book 5 stars out of 5 on Goodreads, that means that I absolutely loved the book. I might have had problems with it, but they were small enough that I overlooked them because I completely fell in love with this book. So my 5 out of 5 rating on Goodreads encompasses both a 10 out of 10 rating and a 9.5 out of 10 rating on my 10-star scale. If I give a book 10 stars out of 10, it's flawless, beautiful, perfect. I'm obsessed with it. It is amazing. And some examples of 10-star books for me are The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, and Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And if a book gets 9.5 stars instead of 10, that basically just means that there's some sort of like missing X factor, or maybe there was like one problem that I couldn't overlook, but overall I still absolutely loved it. I just couldn't commit to giving it a full 10 out of 10 stars. And some examples of books that got 9.5 stars out of 10 are Carry On by Rainbow Rowell and Night Film by Marisha Pessl. So now moving on to books that get 4 out of 5 stars from me on Goodreads. Books that get 4 stars out of 5 for me are ones that I really enjoyed. They may not be as outstanding as books that got 5 out of 5, but they're definitely ones that are going to stay with me and that are memorable. And that tends to be the key difference between a 3-star out of 5 and a 4-star out of 5 for me, is that 3-star books out of 5 are ones that I enjoyed, but they don't really stay with me and they're not quite as memorable as 4-star books. So ratings out of 10 that are within the 4 out of 5 rating are 8 stars out of 10 through 9 stars out of 10. If I give a book 9 stars out of 10, it means that I really enjoyed it, and it probably just barely missed out getting a 5 out of 5 rating from me. Usually what marks a 9-star book for me is that the book is really solid, but there's one aspect that just really impresses me about the book, and that's typically what gets a book to a 9-star rating. Whereas a book that receives 8.5 stars out of 10 is just a really solid book. There may not be one particular aspect that like crazy impressed me, but it's just a really solid book that I really enjoyed, and that's typically what an 8.5 star rating for me means. And for me, some examples of books that received 9 stars out of 10 are The Rhythmatist by Brandon Sanderson and The Runaway King by Jennifer A. Nielsen. And examples of some books that got 8.5 stars out of 10 for me are The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson and City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. A book that receives 8 stars out of 10 is kind of borderline between 3 out of 5 and 4 out of 5. Typically, if I give a book 8 stars out of 10, it means that based solely on technical aspects, it may have deserved more like a 3 out of 5, like a 7.5 out of 10, but because of my enjoyment of it, it bumped it up to a 4 out of 5 or an 8 out of 10. This book is still really good and I really enjoyed it, but it's kind of pushing the border of a 3-star out of 5 book for me. And examples for me of books that got 8 stars out of 10 are The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie and Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life by Brian Lee O'Malley. So now moving on to books that get 3 out of 5 on Goodreads. These are books that I liked. I enjoyed reading them, I thought that they were good, but they're not going to show up on a favorite list or least favorite list. They just were okay. They probably don't have any glaring, obvious, really awful problems, but they're ones that probably won't really stick with me very much. So ratings out of 10 that are encompassed within the 3 out of 5 rating are 6 out of 10 through 7.5 out of 10. Books that get 7.5 stars out of 10 are kind of the flip side of the 8 out of 10 rating in the fact that quality-wise they kind of borderline both the 3 out of 5 and the 4 out of 5, but my enjoyment of it is what bumps it slightly down to a 3 out of 5 versus the 4 out of 5. Technically this is still probably a really good book that I just had minor problems with, but I just didn't enjoy it enough for it to get 4 out of 5. And for me, some examples of 7.5 star ratings out of 10 are Sandman Volume 1 Preludes and Nocturnes by Neil Gaiman and Lexicon by Max Berry. If I give a book 7 stars out of 10, it means I liked it, it was fine, but I don't really think it's special in any way. Quite simply, there just wasn't anything about the book that impressed me in any way, and I felt that it was missing some sort of uniqueness or specialness that I would find in books with higher ratings than 7. Some examples of books that I've given 7 stars out of 10 are Murder After Hours by Agatha Christie and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. For me, a 6.5 star rating out of 10 is basically just the same as a 7 star rating out of 10. It just means that I either liked it less or I found some more problems with it. And an example of a book that I gave 6.5 stars out of 10 is Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. And then right at the bottom of books that receive 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads is the 6 out of 10 star rating. And that's essentially pretty much the same as the 2 before it, but it's right at the bottom of books that I would consider like books that I liked. I liked them less than the books that get higher ratings, and they had slightly more problems than books that had higher ratings, but I still can say that I liked this book. And a couple books that I gave 6 stars out of 10 are In Real Life by Cory Doctorow and Jen Wang, and 10 by Gretchen McNeil. So now moving on to books that receive 2 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. If I give a book 2 stars out of 5, it essentially means that when I think of this book, the first thing I think of is a laundry list of problems that I had with it. I definitely don't like this book, but I also don't have an outright hatred of it either. I basically have either a vague dislike or an indifference toward this book. With 2-star books, I just had a lot of problems with it, and my general feelings toward it are negative. So ratings out of 10 that are encompassed within the 2 out of 5 rating are ratings between 4 out of 10 and 5.5 out of 10. If I give a book 5.5 stars out of 10, it basically means I'm pretty indifferent toward it. Like I said, I have a laundry list of problems, but I don't outright hate it. Examples of books that I have given 5.5 stars out of 10 include Where Futures End by Parker Peavey-House and Evil Under the Sun by Agatha Christie. If I give a book 5 stars out of 10, it basically means that I'm pretty indifferent toward it. I still have a laundry list of problems, but I probably like it a little bit less than I like a 5.5 book, and it's probably quality-wise not quite as good as a 5.5 book. An example of a book that I have given 5 stars out of 10 to is Ghosted Volume 1 Haunted Heist by Joshua Williamson. If I give a book 4.5 stars out of 10, it's basically just a slightly worse version of the 2 before it. It's starting to get into a slight/vague dislike, and I have more problems with it. Some examples of books that I have given 4.5 stars out of 10 include Wildflower by Janine Carbone and Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. And then of course 4 stars out of 10 is the lowest rating that I can give and still give a book 2 stars out of 5. As with the ratings before it, the first thing I think of when I think of a book that received 4 out of 10 stars is still a laundry list of problems. We're getting into the zone where I can definitively say that I disliked this book, but I definitely didn't hate it. And examples of some books that I have given 4 stars out of 10 to include Shatter Me by Taheda Mafi and The Leveler by Julia Durango. And now we have gotten to the 1 star out of 5 rating. If I give a book 1 star out of 5, that just means I hate it. If I give a book 1 star out of 5, the first thing that comes to mind is not a laundry list of the problems that I had, but it's just literally, I hate this book. And I'm not going to go into any of the 0 out of 10 through 3.5 out of 10 ratings because essentially at this point they're all the same. I just hate this book. And there is literally one single book on my Goodreads that I have given 1 star out of 5 to, and that is Looking for Alaska by John Green. It's not often that I outright hate a book or I probably wouldn't finish it, but if a book receives 1 star out of 5, you can guarantee that I hated it. And this is why there's literally one book on my Goodreads that I have given a 1 star out of 5 to. So that is it for my updated rating system. Let me know down in the comments if there's anything that confuses you. Also, like I said, I will link my post down in the description where I go into a little bit more detail about this, and hopefully if you need some clarification, that will give you a little bit, because for me, I find it easier to kind of see this stuff and actually read rating systems, but I also didn't want to just go and change it without making a video on it, so I definitely wanted to explain it for y'all. Also, if any of y'all are curious, I will leave links down in the description or in the cards to my video last year where I talked about my rating system for books, and to my video that I made, I think in August, where I talked about changing my ratings on books. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!